Alright guys, final video of the trimester. We're on to chapter 7, Virtue. The past two chapters been really long. Do apologize for that, but we gotta get through them. Trimesters are in, what is it, like 8 days? It's gonna be fun. So, let's start off with the basis for what this chapter is built around. Okay, so we've got habits. Alright? Now, we've touched upon a little bit of habits in previous chapter 6, and let me give you guys a little bit of a refresher of what habits are. So, habits are like a little bit of a predisposition. You guys probably have experienced in your lives what habits feel like, okay? You come to school, or let's say you're getting ready for school, and as let's say you're getting dressed, you're putting on your tie, you're putting on your jacket, you almost instinctively put on your ID as well. So you've got a predisposition to act a certain way, all right? When you're presented with a choice, let's say when you're presented with which backpack do I bring to school today, you have habitually become accustomed to bring, the normal blue backpack as opposed to a massive duffel bag, okay? You're predisposed to make certain decisions. Now, in some habits, in the more extreme habits, you sometimes lose this decision-making component. Sometimes the habit is so severe that it becomes automatic, all right? Something like bending over when you're about to spit, when you're brushing your teeth. Okay, that's automatic. You almost don't even think to do that. Now, other habits are less severe, like the example I gave you before with the backpack. There's still a good amount of choice involved, granted that you're looking at both options in front of you. You still need to pick one. So, habits, they usually fall into two categories. So you've got habits of being, and then you've got habits of acting. All right? Now, another word for habits of acting would be operative habits, and another word for habits of being would be entitative habits. Okay, so what exactly are these? Well, habits of being are less like what you and I would usually define as a habit. So the examples we've got here are things like strength, health, beauty, okay? You're predisposed to them, but not necessarily because you've been doing them for a long time. Certain people are just predisposed to be strong. Some people have good genetics in the gym. Some people don't work out a lot and they're still, really muscular. Some people are predisposed to be healthy. Some people are predisposed to diabetes. That does not conventionally fall into what we experience as habits. That's acting habits, operative habits. These are developed over the course of life. There's developed, okay? And they can be broken. You can break these habits. They are the result of repeated voluntary acts. They are a result of repeatedly forming intentions to do something and then perfecting those intentions. They come from the exterior acts. All right. So these habits, because of their definition as a predisposition, they are qualities of ours. We can be observed based off of our habits, based off of our conduct. Remember conduct for chapter 5? I hope you do. So what that means, because they're predispositions, they contribute to the accidental form of a human. They contribute to the accidental form of a human. They don't physically define what a human is, okay? Your body, you being a human, is your substantial form, and your body being the matter. But here, accidental form, this evaluates what kind of human you are, based off of your habits and based off of your conduct. Now, we're going to evaluate stuff like personality and how good of a human you are a little bit later in the video. But let's move on to how this relates back to the soul. All right? Soul, Christian humanism class, obviously big component. So we've established way back in the beginning of the year that the soul is the substantial form of the human body. Okay? The body is the matter, the soul is the substantial form. And on top of the soul, you can have several accidental forms. Back when we did matter and form, I think it's the first video, we discussed accidental forms like your hair color, your eye color, your personality, stuff that doesn't fundamentally change your humanity. But more importantly than that, or I should say with more pertinence to this unit, the soul is the first principle. The soul is the first principle of all of the actions and activities that we do. Okay, so this then brings us back to quality. The quality of you as a person. So this is ultimately defined by your habits, which help affect your soul. So habits are not something intrinsically good, they're not something intrinsically bad. You can have good and bad predispositions. Good, that's a B. Good and bad predispositions, okay? Let's say you're predisposed to stealing a wallet. I don't know why that certain example seems to pop into my head right away, but let's just say you're predisposed to stealing a wallet. That's obviously a bad predisposition. You might be predisposed to, let's say, put $5 into the little basket they pass around during Mass. That's obviously a good habit. If you do it enough times, it becomes part of your character, becomes part of your conduct, becomes part of how we evaluate your soul. Okay? As things come into habit, they begin to define who you are as a person. That's why we say doing something once isn't the end of the world. Once it becomes a habit, it starts to define who you are. Stealing a wallet or donating money. So moving on from there, we have a bunch of other ways to characterize who you are as a person, which we call your character. This is the overall evaluation of you, okay? One of them is your habits, your conduct, your quality. That comes here. So, for example, I'm sociable. I tend to work hard. Also things that have to do with my emotions. My personality is a big thing that falls under here. Personality. I'm very difficult to get upset. You know, you can't practice being difficult to get upset. You can't practice, changing your emotions around. It's just how you're predisposed to react to stuff. That's a subdivision of your personality. How do you react to things? Your character is defined by a combination of values. Now, this temperament thing, this temperament and personality duality, is something that is very heavily influenced by your nature and your environment, okay? They are not controlled by you, they are controlled by the world around you. So now, in stark contrast to these two, we've got your habits right here, which your habits you are able to change. All right, let's bring that back over here, habits. Okay, so you can usually mess with your habits if you so desire to change them in two basic ways. You can either neglect them / forget about them, or let's go into this first. So let's say that you are predisposed to steal a man's wallet when you see the opportunity come arise, when you're walking down the streets and you see a man with pockets without zippers on them, and you've memorized the exact imprint of a wallet that pushes through the side of your pants, you know exactly what it's supposed to look like. So you know there's a wallet in there. But let's say it's COVID, it's quarantine, you haven't left the house in a very long time. You haven't gotten the chance to encounter such an opportunity. In that case, you would have forgotten the habit. And it would be much more difficult to do that same act a second time because you haven't done it in so long. And the next option is you can try to actively and consciously break the habit. Okay, this one up here is an example of unconscious. You were not trying to break this habit. This one, breaking the habit, involves some action on your own. Break the habit. So let's use the same example, steal a wallet. Let's say now you're in a relationship, okay? You don't want to appear like a little greedy gremlin that goes around stealing people's wallets. So you, even though there's an ulterior motive at heart, this is still you actively trying to break your habit. Okay, you're walking with your girlfriend down the street, and you don't want to appear super desperate for money because that's not a good look. So you slowly but surely try and suppress the urge to take the man's wallet. Which brings us to our next little segment here, which is the difference between customs and habits. Okay? When we talk about habits, there is a degree of automatism. They're automatic. Okay? There is a certain lack of conscious control over your habits. Okay? Lack of consent from the will. Doesn't mean it's completely absent, but it's significantly absent. Okay, we're not robots. But customs, on the other hand, are, for example, like your morning routine. They are regular, they are usual activities, they are things that you have become accustomed to. You become accustomed to them. But they aren't habits because you don't wake up in the morning and instantly start doing them. Okay, most of us, like let's say it's your morning routine for school. You wake up at 6 a.m., let's say, and you start brushing your teeth, eating breakfast, putting on your attire. But when you get up on the weekend, let's just say for argument's sake that you wake up at 6 a.m. on the weekends, I do, you are not immediately predisposed to put on your school attire. Okay? Therefore, it's not a habit. There is some choice. There is some choice that is involved every time when you go through this process. It's usually a process. Okay? Whereas a small part of your morning routine, let's say brushing your teeth, is a habit. Assuming you're someone who brushes their teeth every day, not that I would know anything about that. So brushing your teeth. That's a habit for most people. Usually, most days you wake up, and without giving it much thought, you find yourself walking towards the bathroom and grabbing your toothbrush. Okay? There's no debate, should I brush my teeth this morning? But on weekends, there's usually a debate, what should I do this morning? So now that brings us over here to like the major theme of this unit, virtue versus vice. Okay? Now a virtue is a custom or predisposition that tends towards your ultimate happiness. Okay? Whereas a vice is like a bad habit. Something that inclines you away from what is good. And vices could take the forms of many things. Like, obviously, there's the wallet example. But aside from that, there could be, like, you come out of bed every morning and immediately you decide to go downstairs and, let's say, see what your little brother's up to. You know, you want to just pick at him today. Let's just say, for example. That's not good, but that's a bad habit, okay? But characteristically, with virtues and vices, there must be choice involved. Okay? There must always be choice involved. So, in most habits, there is choice involved. In some cases, it's completely automatic and there is no consent of the will involved. But for all virtues and vices, remember, we are dealing with voluntary acts. And for something to be voluntary, you have to be able to choose it of your own free will every time. Can't be automatic. Free to choose. That's the big part here. However, by the definition of like habits and customs, virtues and vices come with greater ease than their alternatives. Come with greater ease than their alternatives. Okay? So let's say that you're put in a situation where your friend got up to use the bathroom and he left $2 on the floor. Okay, let's say it fell out of his pocket as he was getting up. $2 on the floor. If you have the good habit of being an honest friend and picking that money off the floor, keeping it in your hand until the guy comes back to give it back to him, okay, that would be a virtue, that'd be a good disposition. It's a lot easier to do that thing, okay? It's more likely. So when we deal with virtues and vices, they're not diametrically opposed, okay? Virtues and vices exist on a spectrum, where you've got virtue in the middle, and you've got vice on both ends, okay? So, on one end, you have too little virtue, which is a vice, and on one end, you have too much virtue, which is also a vice. So, let's say making money, for example, okay? Honestly making money and bettering the economy is a virtue, to a certain degree. Let's call it working a job, okay? A vice would be sitting at home all day and wasting everybody's time, including your own. That's called sloth. I think it's one of the 7 deadly sins. Don't quote me on that. Too much work, too much draw towards money is like obsession. That's also a vice. So this area right here where we have virtue is what we call the golden mean. Okay? Now the golden mean will be slightly different for all people. That's an important thing to realize. The golden mean is relative to the person, and it's relative to the circumstances. Remember when we covered circumstances in the previous unit? If you don't remember, go back, look at it, then come back. So let's say some people are more, let's say, disciplined and motivated than others. Some people might want to make a lot more money and can handle making a lot more money than others without being ideologically possessed. Some people don't have that capability. Some people get too greedy. Some people need to lie further this way on the spectrum. It's relative to one's abilities. So now moving on, we're going to look at the 2 subdivisions of the intellect that we took a look at much earlier in the year, back during trimester 1, I think it was. So we resolved that the intellect can be separated into the practical intellect and the speculative intellect. And we also evaluated back in the beginning of the year that the practical intellect was the intellect seeking out knowledge that was necessary so as to perform a task. It was to obtain knowledge or the truth to achieve an end, to use more course-related terms, to achieve an end. Whereas the speculative intellect, as the name implies, is more speculative. You know, it's I want to learn the truth purely for the sake of knowing the truth, have knowledge for the sake of knowledge. So, in that light, we are able to look at how the speculative intellect comes into actuality. So, the speculative intellect has three main, we're going to call it levels. So, understanding the top one is very rudimentary. Okay? You understand some basic facts. It's rudimentary, and you know some stuff. You've memorized something. But you're not quite at the place where you can apply these things. When you come down to knowledge, this is the development of skills. This is the development of applications of understanding. This up here. And when you get to wisdom, this is more or less the mastery of a craft, mastery of a body of knowledge. And in mastery, you are able to teach it effectively to someone else. When you have wisdom, you are able to convey that knowledge, that understanding to someone else and bring them up to a level of proficiency near yours, near that of wisdom, or one of knowledge. You are able to teach it. Now, on the practical sense, practical is more observable. It is more tangible. Okay? So the practical can lead us into two words. We call that the art, which is more external. Now, the art is the physical thing that you have perfected. Okay? One of them could be like painting, could be a literal art. One of them could be like, let's say, cooking. The art is usually something of a skill. Something of a skill that is tangible. You know, reading is a skill, but that's not a tangible skill. Cooking, sculpting are tangible skills. They produce something. As the art concerns the external, we also have prudence. One of our cardinal virtues, which we will come to in a minute, prudence, which concerns the internal. This is the virtue of proper decision-making. Proper decision-making that helps us achieve a good external outcome. So, if we make good decisions, we're able to get good external outcomes if we perfect those acts, if we perfect those intentions. And this will eventually bring us towards goodness. Goodness of the mind, goodness of the soul, happiness in life. This is our ability to make right decisions, to be able to take a step back, look past our emotions, look past our impulses, look past our habits, look at the world around us, and find and choose the best possible course of action with respect to morality. Okay? So that segues us perfectly right into the cardinal virtues. So we already discussed one was prudence. We have one as fortitude. We've got one as justice. And we've got one as temperance. Justice is your obligation to pay someone their dues, or to honor someone's rights. Okay, let's use that definition, to honor someone's rights. Okay? Now, there are two main types. There's a third one that doesn't necessarily fall into the category of the cardinal justice, but so there are two main types. Now, commutative justice is between equals, okay? So you and me bump into each other on the street, we both extend the common courtesy of I'm sorry, and we all go on our merry way. Everyone has a right not to be bumped into, okay? It's also like between two equals, you lend your friend money, you have a right to getting that money back. It is just of your friend to repay his debt honorably. Now, distributive justice is of the community, or someone who represents the community, someone in power acting on an individual. Okay, so this is the more legal definition of justice. Okay, so if someone is a criminal, if someone's out there robbing banks, the community must express the justice of sentencing this man to, let's say, prison, or whatever punishments may entail. But the moral of the story is that the community has a right not to be disturbed, not to be robbed. So moving on, we have fortitude. Okay? Fortitude is the ability to overcome the irascible appetites that are maybe impeding on your actions. So, for example, fear is one of the irascible appetites. You might have to do the right thing. You might need to stand up to a bully. That's a good thing to do. But you might be afraid that he's going to beat you up. Okay? Fortitude is being able to overcome that fear and pick a fight with him anyway, because it is the morally right thing to do. Now, that stands in contrast to temperance, which is overcoming the concupiscible appetites, like, let's say, pleasure, in order to do what is morally right. So this is overcoming the bad things. This is restraining yourself from too much good, relatively speaking. What you perceive to be good. That's a better way of describing it. So, yes, money is great, but you should not become so invested in the gluttony and riches that money can buy you that you become stingy or greedy. Okay, you need to be able to resist temptation and excess. So, there we go, guys. The end of the cardinal sins. Good luck on trimesters. AP exams are in, 5 weeks? Wish me luck. I've got 10 exams to take. This is going to be a nightmare, but enjoy life.